Hello and welcome to the North East Non-League Show, sponsored by DJ Private Hire, Gateway Accountancy Services Limited, Elite Goalkeeper Academy and Motivate. Tonight is our episode 75, which is our Northern League March review and the final hurdle with guests Dan and James. Lads, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
Pleasure, as always.
No problem. Thanks for inviting us back.
And as we said, we wrote this kind of yesterday, and there's obviously been games last night, games on go at the moment, so bear with us as we go on through it as well, because I know there's some big results tonight as well. But we're starting in Division 1 and the title race. Bishop Auckland, top of the league on 82 points, and Shildon on 76 points in second place. Obviously, 6 points gap at the moment, 7 games left. Bishop got Shildon, Towlaw, Retno Athletic, Wickham, Benfield, Crook and Carlisle City, and Shildon with North Shields, Bishop, Gisborough, Berkeley twice, Northallerton, Heaton, which obviously looking all forward to the big game on Easter Monday against each other. Between us, kind of what's your thoughts on it, lads? Who do you think will get it, or do you think that game on Monday could decide the title?
I think it is obviously the 6 point gap is tough to look past Bishop at this moment in time, and especially if they obviously go and beat Shildon, but even if they just don't lose against Shildon, I think it could potentially leave them with quite a lot soon. If you just obviously mentioned the fixtures there, the Shildon have got a tough running, obviously having to face Berkeley twice, having to face Heaton, having to face Gisborough, obviously teams that are sort of pushing for those playoff spots. Obviously, again, like Northallerton as well, who've had a pretty rough time of late, which I'm sure is something we'll get on to in a few minutes or so. But again, they'll be obviously fighting for their lives. They'll want to maybe just make absolute sure that they're not going to have any anything thrown upon them by the FA in the summer. So it's going to be a tricky running for both teams. But we look at Bishop especially, just one defeat all season. I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know, really.
Yeah, I agree with that one, James. Look at the fixtures. You think the tougher one is the Shildon fixtures? I think it might be for us. But yeah, we'll come back in a moment there. But Dan, like you say, chatting about, I think the game that you've hit on last is exactly the same as well, was the Berkeley game, playing them twice. I mean, we've seen Berkeley this season. They might go up and get brief 3-0, but the next game will go win by 5 or 6. And it's massive games. And like you say, Heaton, who's playing really well at the moment. And like you say, you've got some big games in there as well. But you're looking at the Bishop game, that's the Bishop fixture. There's no disrespect to the likes of Towlaw, Benfield, obviously teams that kind of struggle at the moment, but you expect Bishop to go out and win those games, and it could go down the wire. But I think after obviously the Monday game, it'll be a lot clearer, won't it?
Yeah, it should be. But obviously, if Shildon go and win that game, then it maybe gives it a bit of a new dimension, and it could be something that'll breathe a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum into Shildon. And look, obviously, Shildon have got of a very high quality team themselves. I think much like Bishop, that they know how to not lose games. I think they've only lost. I've got it in front of me. They've only lost 3 games all season, which is still, after 31 games, is still very mightily impressive. You look at the amount of goals that the two sides have scored between them. Bishop's on 110, Shildon on 109. Both keeping it tight at the back as well. Bishop's conceded 25, Shildon conceded 27. So statistically, there's really not a lot between the two sides, and I think it's. Obviously, it is pretty strongly in Bishop's hands, but you can't it'd be foolish at this moment in time to totally rule Shildon out.
Yeah, just look at them fixtures there, James, and chatting about obviously Bishop's fixture, Shildon. I mean, looking at them, would you agree that Shildon's got the harder run in? Still froze, I think. He'll get there. But looking obviously at that game on Monday coming, obviously with the strikers, I mean, I was chatting to the Shildon assistant manager down the hub last week. Obviously, the amount of strikers that have got at Shildon on form as well. Bishop, obviously, Johnson, Vexen playing well. But it's one of those games where you can hype it up so much, like you do normally when you see these Super Sunday games, and it could end up being a 0-0 draw. But with the strikers and the tactics that both sides have got, it should be a great game, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I'll keep filling to James. I hope he'll get his. Hopefully he'll sort out soon. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Those sorts of games can maybe like build you up to maybe let you down somewhat. I mean, granted, if that does happen, then I think Bishops would be the whole lot like more happier with it. But I think as well as we just touched upon there, like two very tight knit defenses as well. So obviously they've got the goal scorers, but those goal scorers are certainly not going to have an easy time breaking down like such tight defenses.
Yeah, cracking game. Can't wait for that one. And obviously that leaves with the playoffs as well. I mean, with the title race, you would expect obviously Bishop, Shildon, whoever doesn't make it, could be strong, really strong favourites for the playoffs as well. But you're looking at now, and you've got West Auckland, Heaton, Berkeley, Gisborough, Carlisle, Borough, Rangers, and Whitley Bay as well. And it's kind of going from there's possibly other teams that might slide into it, but with the games that's left, you would expect 4 of them sides to be in there now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think the rest of the league are starting to maybe be caught adrift a little bit. I think at this moment in time, I'd most definitely fancy Heaton's being there because I think they're like picking up form, they're picking up momentum. Obviously, Berkeley is maybe they're touched upon are always like picking up like the odd win here and there. Yes, they might go and have the odd heavy defeat, but you've got to remember it's their first year in Division 1, and it's been a remarkable first year in Division 1 for them, really. West obviously got plenty of experience in there. Gisborough having a little bit of a wobble at the minute, but then again, never ever an easy side for anyone to play against. I think we should mention that obviously they're playing Carlisle City tomorrow, so that's going to be a really big game. Obviously, you've got two sides there that are maybe just outside. Obviously, I know Carlisle City is 6 points out, Gisborough 3 points out, so you could potentially argue if Carlisle City don't win tomorrow, and that could be them out of it. Borough Rangers, it's maybe a bit of a sort of different kettle of fish because they have played 2 games less, which is important. Have lost fewer games than Carlisle City as well. So they've got a far superior goal difference. So I definitely wouldn't count them out just yet. Whitley Bay, what you see is what you get with Whitley Bay. Really, I mean, I think especially early on, they had they've had a few heavy defeats to their name, so that maybe explains a lot why they're in a playoff race and their goal difference is 0. So it is going to be interesting, but at this moment in time, I do like my tip. My tips being what I think at this moment in time, the team I'm pretty confident will be there is Heaton, Stan. I think Berkeley as well. After that, it's just a case of who joins them, really. Can Gisborough pick up form again? Can West maintain their position? Can Borough Rangers sneak in unsighted? Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to go right down the wire. Are you back, James?
I'm back, yeah. Some connection.
Yeah, back there. Excellent.
There's always a minute into
But no, we're just chatting before we got on the playoffs there. The title race, obviously, with Bishop and Shildon, looking at the fixtures, and we're just saying, obviously, with the Shildon and running that they've got playing Berkeley twice, they seem to have the tougher running. I mean, what's your thoughts on the title race? Do you think it's wrapped up, or do you think it could, obviously, after the Monday game, be wide open?
I think if Bishops win on Monday, that's it. It's game over. You kind of see. You look at the run-in that Shildon have got. I mean, having to play Berkeley twice, and they're on a really good run of form at the moment. That'd be massive for them. I saw Bishops the other week away at North Shields when our game at Jarrow was cancelled, and I was talking to some Bishops fans after the match, and North Shields, they were a tough team to break down, and Bishops, they got the win, they got a penalty, then they got a last-minute like breakaway goal effectively, and the sense of relief I think from the Bishops fans was like kind of noticeable that they got through it. And talking to them, and all they were focused on was Easter Monday, and that game at like local, big local derby against Shildon, and given where both teams are in the league, I think they all thought that was the decider. And if they get that, I mean, you look at the running Bishops, you can't see them slipping up too much. There's not that many banana skin games in really tough games against the other teams in the playoff picture. But still, going away at Redcar Athletic, you never know what we're going to get with Redcar. Sometimes there can be, could turn out some fantastic results, and other times less so. So that they could potentially drop points there. But you think whoever's going to take that, if Bishops win on Monday, I think that's game over, and then that's them in pole position to take the league title. And then just picking up what you're talking about there in terms of the playoffs, I think Shildon obviously is shoe in. I think I'd back similar to Dan. I'd go with Birtley. My picks are Shildon second, Birtley third, Heaton Stanton fourth. I think West Auckland fifth, given West Auckland's running just seems a little bit easier than some of the others. But anything can happen, and it's one of those kind of situations as well. There's some teams have played more games than others. Is it better to have points on the board or games in hand at this point in the season? Heaton and Birtley, they've got at least one game in hand over Gisborne and Carlisle, and Whitley being West Auckland. So is that better for them, or is it better to have the points there? And they look further down. You mentioned like Borough Rangers. They've got the ability to go on a run. They've got a really good squad. They had a fantastic win in the cup and in the North Riding Senior Cup this week against Redcar Athletic. They could go on a run. It's just it's so open. It's fascinating, really. There's so many permutations and things that could happen. And then obviously Gisborne, they've had a really good run of form up until the past few weeks, and kind of dropped a few points here and there. But you look at their 3-point deduction that they got early in the season,
isn't it?
and that could really bite them as they come towards the end of the season, and that'll be really frustrating for them. If they miss out by 1 or 2 points on a playoff place, and it comes down to a 3-point deduction. So it's all to play for. But I said Shildon second, Birtley third. I've gone for Heaton Stand fourth, and West Auckland fifth to make the playoffs.
And I think it's really good when you look at the teams from third down to ninth. I mean, just picking some games out. You've got West Auckland still obviously got to play Whitley Bay and Carlisle City, who's in that mix. You look at Heaton Stan, who's got obviously the most games left, and they've obviously still got Shildon to play. Gisborne, Birtley, who's in that mix. Birtley Town themselves, obviously you've got Heaton to play. Obviously Shildon as well. And you look at Gisborne, Shildon to play, Heaton to play. And you just go down the list, and they've all got each other to play. I mean, I really feel sorry for obviously Northampton, who's on a really poor run, and I think Northampton's got to play nearly every single one of those teams at the tops of them must have a horrible run in. But like you say, Dan, with all of them still got to kind of play each other. I would at least say between 1 or 2 between that little pack. That one win, that one draw could make a huge difference come the end of the season, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously we are touching a lot upon like when the teams play each other, but it happens, every year without fail, every week without fail, almost, where like you'll look at a game and think, oh yeah, this team should be winning that game comfortably, and it just doesn't happen. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's the same in an Northern League. It's the same in any league, almost, really, isn't it? So it's going to be pretty fascinating. I think obviously one game I'm going to in a couple of weeks' time is Gisborne versus Tower Now. Where if you'd asked me what I think the score in that game would have been, like maybe a couple of weeks ago, I would have probably said, "Oh, it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if Gisborne knocked at double figures." But let's see, look at Tower Now. We've got a few wins to the name, which we'll talk about in a bit, no doubt. Gisborne, as I've just mentioned, not. Obviously, I won't say in bad form, just maybe inconsistent above all else just now. It might not be as much of a home banker as it maybe appears on the surface.
Definitely. I think as well, James, when you look at all them fixed that left, and you kind of think, right, Monday, that's the 1st of April, you've got to have the games played by a certain date. I mean, I've chatted to a few of the teams that had to use the hub to get some of the games played. I mean, just mentioning one, Washington, I was talking to their treasurer on the gate the other week, and he just kind of says, these games are coming thick and fast. You've got one night they might be playing when all the lads are on back shift at Washington, Nissan. They kind of get a side out. They've got to get all these players to play. And you look at them sides now where they could be playing 3 games a week. People are working shifts and lads like that. And anyone's beating anyone at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as the postponements have happened during the season, obviously it's like a kind of log jam as you get in towards March and April, and expecting people to turn out, and it's competitive football, 2 or 3 3 nights a week. 3 games a week, for a couple of weeks, that's pretty solid, and not just even if they can make every game, that kind of playing every couple of days, and then another game, and another couple of days off, and another game. It takes its toll. And then obviously availability of players. If you're missing a couple of players and people are likely carrying knocks and not playing to the not playing to 100% potentially, doing their best to get through. It all kind of impacts, and it all makes a difference. And as Dan mentioned, there will be some crazy results still to come in that league between now and the end of the season. There'll be some that you think, where the hell's that come from? And partly will be because of tiredness, player availability, etc. So it all plays a part, and all adds to the story and adds to the drama really towards the end of the season.
Oh, it's going to be an exciting few, like you say, last month. And Dan, getting on to the middle pack, obviously that 10th down to 17th place now. I mean, obviously teams are safe, kind of getting the playoffs kind of really go down now. Would you say, looking at them teams, that's in there, any surprise on teams where they've been and what you could think should have been higher, or who's had a kind of surprise season?
I think, I think the obvious standout one is Red Athletic. You look at the caliber of players that they've recruited throughout the course of the season, the excitement around the club in pre-season. I was obviously at the first game of the season against Berkeley, where I think that game kind of took everyone by surprise, where Berkeley were 3-0 up in 10 minutes or something like that. Just absolutely wiped the floor with them. Had an absolutely horrific start to the season. It looked as though the projects that nobody's going on there wasn't really working, and obviously they've recruited a lot of players since, a lot of high quality players as well. So I think it's probably I've said at this point going to be more of a next season thing for them, and it was always going to take time. Rome wasn't built in a day, so to speak. So I think it's that they've, regardless, I think you'd probably have to say have had a pretty disappointing season. Contrary to that, I think Penrith have maybe had a pretty solid season. I think they've been sort of perennial strugglers, whereas I think this year I think they've done a lot better than what they have in previous years, and fair play to them from that. We've probably touched upon a couple of times how difficult it maybe can be for the Cumbrian sides, being so cut off from the rest of the league geographically. I think obviously you've got Wickham in 10th place there, probably got a bit too much to do now in terms of getting in the playoffs, but obviously you've got Scott Robson banging in the goals there. Obviously I think he's much like Aidan Rutledge was with Berkeley last year. I think the northeast clubs at a higher end of non-league are going to start sniffing around him, so they're going to be, I think, a one to watch next season. I think because you'd think anyway, nature and non-league, you probably will go in the summer. I mean, they might keep him, who knows, but it'll be interesting to see how they replace him. I think all in all, I don't think they've had a bad season. They've obviously got to the Durham Challenge Cup final. They've had runs in the Vars. They've got the Macclesfield Tiny FA Cup as well. So they've not had a bad season, so to speak. I just think maybe all the cup commitments that have maybe caught up with them, and it's maybe the reason why they've probably got a bit too much to do in terms of the league now.
Yeah, I was going to say just too many games at one point, isn't it? I think with Wickham. Even Imran, thank you very much for watching. Great lad from Heaton. Like you say, best of luck for the rest of the season as well. I think it could be a possible good one come the end of the season, Imran. And James, I mean, you look at some of them teams now, and they've got 5 or 7 games left, and it is, after sport managing, it's kind of hard where you've got nothing really to fight for. Obviously, all teams are kind of safe now from above the bottom 2, really, kind of getting the playoffs. But I think it's all about a bit of pride now, and obviously teams finishing, they might have been the highest that they finished in Division 1 and stuff like that. But you've just got to try and keep the lads pushing, even though they turn up playing 3 games a week, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it has been a long season, and there's been big gaps in the season, as we've already discussed. The fixture congestion, all the postponements. There'll probably be some players and some managers and some, people just want the season to wrap up. But, for a lot, it's kind of keeping that momentum going. You mentioned before, like Dan mentioned there about Rec Athletic, they've got some big name players come in, from a lot come over from Mascot United, on contracts and stuff. So it's kind of how are they going to, they need to get some momentum going, pay for a bit of pride as well. You kind of get to a point as well. I think maybe the pressure's off some of them. They're not having to they're not pushing for the playoffs. They're out of reach. They're safe from relegation. You're not going to have to play with any kind of pressure. You just go out and play, and you see it in the Premier League. You see it in the Championship, League One, League Two. When players have got that bit of freedom, safety. There's nothing more effectively to play for. It just kind of pressure's off and they play a lot better. And that's where, as we said before, you'll get some strange results coming up. I mean, you look through the fixtures that all the teams have got in Division 1, and they've all got to play like those playoff contenders two or three times. So they're all going to have a role to play in how the league shapes up, like finally shakes out. Can somebody steal a victory against an unexpected result? Yes, that'll happen a couple of times, we've already said. It's just, there's a bit of pride as well. You want to finish the season off as best you possibly can, I guess. You want to, keep going, work for your teammates and finish the season on a high, and then, you take that in the next season or wherever they end up. And it's, just, I think anybody who plays football, or, you don't go out just to cruise. You want to win, when you go out to play, you don't just turn up just to make the numbers up. You want to win. So they're going to put a shift in, they're going to try, but as I say, pressure's off. Who knows what will happen, and it'll, I mentioned before, make a massive impact on how the final season standings end up.
100%. I mean, looking at the relegation in Division 1 as well, Northampton have just been mentioned there. I think they've got to play almost all the top teams going for the playoffs as well. But looking at the teams below RCA, I can't see them winning enough to go above them. But Towler, obviously, like you say, Dan was saying, picking up things now, sitting at 19th on 10 points. RCA sitting 20th on 4 points. But Dan, too, obviously, Towler, 2 wins in March. And I think that's probably good enough now to save them, do you think?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, especially if only one is going down. I'm not going to lie. I watched RCA at the back end of February, I think it was. Lost 6-0 at home to Gisborough, and I just saw nothing from them to suggest that they could get out of trouble. I mean, even if they win that game on the last day of the season against Towler, I do still think they probably have been caught a bit too far adrift. And we'll have a look at their fixtures between now and the end of the season. Also got Heatonstown tomorrow, which is a game you'd expect that they will probably lose. CM, obviously, CM are down there, a lot of young players, etc. So maybe a possibility in that one. And North Shields as well, a club sort of looking to rebound a little bit. Northallerton, which could be a pretty crucial one for them. You look at how poorly things are going for Northallerton at the minute. I think a distinct lack of confidence there, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame because I do actually quite like Northallerton. Penrith, West Lotman and Towler, so they've not got the worst running in the world, but when you have only got 4 points all season, conceded 130 goals, I think again it does tell its own story. But same thing with Towler. I mean, obviously they've. I think at one point we were discussing are they going to go the full season without winning a game, but then all of a sudden they've gone beating Northallerton twice, gone pick up a win against Benfield as well. But just looking at Towler's running now, I mean that is absolutely brutal. They've got to play Bishops, got to play Gisborough, they've got to play Borough Rangers, got to play Wickham, so got to play West as well. So it's going to be exceptionally tough for them. So I think for RCA, they've just got to maybe try and pluck something out of somewhere, because they'll obviously know themselves that of the two run-ins between the bottom two, I think RCA's is probably the more favourable. But then again, I've got to pull back a 6-point deficit.
Yeah, I mean, James, we mentioned RCA, and it's just a shame. I know I was talking to Swaz a few weeks ago at our charity event, and obviously the years that he had at RCA and the great side that he was kind of building, and to be fair, fighting above the weight for many years in that area. But it's just a shame now, because any teams in the past, you might think, right, going down, you'd expect them to come out the next season. But you look at Division 2 now, and you know yourselves, I mean, you've came in, you've put a good fight in. Say FC, Hartlepool, Borough Rangers last season, there's no easy games now in Division 2. There's no guarantee of nothing when you go down now, is there?
It's a brutal league. the quality right the way through. I think last time I was on the show, we were talking to Steve, the lad from Thornaby, and he was commenting, how tough it was when they came down last season.
Yeah.
They kind of came down and they struggled at the start of the season. They've done really well second half of the campaign and kind of up there in playoff contention. But it took a while for them to get going. It just shows the level of quality that's in Division 2. And conversely, you look at, we've just been talking about the playoffs, and two of the playoff teams, potential playoff teams in there, Borough Rangers and Berkeley Town, went up from Division 2 last season. Obviously, they've strengthened and developed and got better players through. But the core of those teams is still the same. So it shows the gap isn't huge in terms of quality level. So it is really, really tough when they come down. I mean, I heard an interview with RCA's chairman the week, and he was talking about how what you mentioned there, they're kind of punching above their weight for a good few years and a relatively young team, and trying to survive. And you thought they got relegated last season, but obviously there's the change with Pickering leaving and all that kind of mix up. So they ended up staying in Division 1. Now you they're looking to you mentioned how they're kind of looking to relaunch the club and get some more interest and backers and get the local community coming out to support them. Getting people through the gate, and might be easier in Division 2 when you got more of a chance of getting some points than what they've had this season. I mean, it takes a hell of a lot of commitment to go week in, week out. When most games you're going to struggle, and credit to them. They keep them going, and I think hopefully, I think what you mentioned as well is that kind of balance between financial security and do you go and punch above your weight financially as well, but which impacts you potentially in a year or 2 years time, and it's making sure the club keeps going and can develop sustainably. So that's a big thing. So it'll be tough for them, but you wouldn't see them going right the way down. They might do something like Thornaby, or they might go and struggle at first and then find their feet. They've got a lot of young players, I think, from what their chairman was saying, and it might be a better environment in Division 2 for them to to grow and develop as a team and to push on and try and get back to where they were before.
100%. And on to Division 2 next. Well, I just want to say massive thanks to everyone that's watching. How's your team getting on? What's your thoughts for the rest of the season? Get the comments in as well. But Division 2, I know we talked about Division 1, the title, not quite there, but I can 100% say I think now Blythe Town has wrapped that one up. I know I spoke to Michael O'Connor before the game on last weekend, and I kind of said 15 points, clears it over yet? And it was straight away, nope, it's not over until literally they kind of get enough more points. And I think it just shows you himself, and obviously Gav Phil too, great, obviously manager, assistant manager in that team there. But obviously I was at the game against Bolton 8-0 the other day, and like I say, it could have been double figures, but some of the football that they play and the quality that they have, it was just a pleasure to watch at time. I know I messaged Gav after the game to say it was an absolute pleasure watching Blythe play. But Dan, obviously if they do go up, which it looks like they are, if they keep hold of the players, I know the chance to be a few players in and out over the summer, but they should hold their own in Division 1, shouldn't they?
Yeah, and I think you look at the blueprint that's been set out by Borough Rangers and Berkeley, like both have gone into Division 1 and done really well. And I think the thing that I find most astonishing about Blythe this season is they haven't drawn a single game. They've we're getting towards the back end of the season. Played 34, won 30 and lost 4. It just sort of goes to show you really that if they're going to lose, then they'll lose on their terms, if that makes sense. But it's been pretty almost unstoppable really this season. I watched your video on Saturday, and coming up against Bolton, and obviously like Bolton by no means a bad side, and we're just talking off air there that the Bolton keeper actually had an absolute blinder in that game, and he's probably the reason that it wasn't possibly quite deeply into double figures. So they're a pretty relentless force at the minute, and I don't think there's any secret I have got a bit of backing behind them, and I certainly don't begrudge any team of that. If it was your club, you wouldn't turn it down. Yeah. I really can't see them having any real struggles in Division 1 next season. And if anything, I at this moment in time, I'd even say that they'll probably follow like they'll probably pick up where the like Borough Rangers and Berkeley have left off in being like right up there.
Definitely. I mean, James, like you say, you've seen them twice obviously this season against Yarm, and they're a really good side, aren't they?
Oh, they're head and shoulders the best team in the league, by far. Obviously, they went into the season as kind of title favourites, I think, alongside Blue Star, were the kind of top two that most people were kind of predicting, to do the business. And they've been the top two pretty much all season. You look at that, as Dan mentioned, only lost 4 games all season. One of them was against Yarm. We're the only team to keep a clean sheet against them all year. We'll beat them 1-0 back in sort of late August time. Heroic defensive effort from the whole Yarm team, to keep a clean sheet, and we won 1-0. So it's something I'm certainly proud of. But you look like top score, they scored 120 goals, conceded 26. Mental, 21 points. Just looking at the league before, 21 points clear. I think they deserve a champions really. As mentioned, we played them at home, and that was a hell of a performance from us. We played them away just before Christmas, and we lost 3-2. They just took their chances. They were clinical up front. I mean, Dan Wilson, the centre forward lad who was at North Shields last season, I think, and then Brandon Slater, one of the kind of plays off the front, and he was fantastic. He's just real quality. And then you got Robbie Dale at the back, just marshalling things, spraying the ball around, reading the game well. We give them a good game. We got it back in the last sort of couple of minutes, then to 3-2, and hoping for another Yarm miracle, but it wasn't to come. But they are a fantastic team. I think, as I mentioned, deserve a champions really.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, the next one, the playoffs, I mean, there's a guarantee that the bloke's going to go, but look at the playoffs, there's no guarantee. Anyone in the playoffs at the minute, from 2nd down to 10th, which I think is crazy when you think when you're 4 weeks away before the season ends, and you're still looking at all them teams in with a chance of getting in the playoffs and staying in them. The game's coming thick and fast, like you say, playing 3 games a week, and everyone's getting beat at the moment. I think there's a couple of weekends ago where all the teams in the playoff got beat, which was a really surprise. But you look at Blue Star Bentley, who's obviously got a little bit gap in between everyone else, which looks like them two have kind of certain being there, but it looks like 2 places up for grabs. Dan, what's your thoughts on the playoff, and who do you fancy getting them last 2 spots, if anyone?
Yeah, as we just touched upon there, I think like Blue Star and Bedlington have probably done enough. I think the only question is who finishes second and who finishes third out of those two. Yeah. But you look at Sinners in fourth. Like, I've got to remember, it weren't that long ago. Sinners had what was it, a 16-game unbeaten run or something like that. Crazy, so they've like clearly got something about them. I was actually at a game where they lost that unbeaten run, which was against Easington, who were just the one place below them. Granted, they have played 4 games less, and looking at that, you maybe would fancy Easington. Also, you got Horden just behind them. I think Easington and Horden, like looking at, I think given that they have got Easington have got 4 games in hand on Sinners, Horden have got 3. You'd think looking at that that those two probably would overtake them. Easington are 3 points behind them at the minute. Horden the 4. So I mean, I know you've obviously got to perform any games in hand. You've got to win, and you've got to win them as well. So. But obviously, Horden have been there. Obviously, there last year. I've got wrongs to put right, if you will. Easington always been like a pretty solid team. Always been sort of there or thereabouts in Division 2. And then just behind that, obviously, you've got a bit of a chasing pack. Thornaby, Chester Street Town, Yarm and Eagles Cliff, and maybe to some degree like Eschwinen and maybe even FC Hartlepool as well. But I mean, granted, those teams have probably got a bit too much to do now. If I'm being honest about it, but it's certainly going to be interesting. Can the teams that have got the games in hand like make them count? As we said, like Division 1, there's going to be results that just appear out of absolutely nowhere as well.
I mean, just a full-time score coming in there as well. Legend Ismail, thank you for putting that in. Full-time score, Washy 5, Bolden 2. I feel like sort of Saturday, the scores coming in and keep it coming. But like you say, I know you just mentioned there how you've seen them play twice now and score no goals. to score 5 against Bolton. But to be fair, I watched them last week against Brighton down at the home. And I tell you what, they put some balls in the box. I know they went 2-0 down very early in that game, but they came out fighting and they were very unlucky to get beat 3-2. Bo Beresford, John Beresford's son, was playing down the left-hand side for us that night. He was absolutely fantastic getting the balls in the box. I don't think he beat Washington very long. He played really well on the night. But yeah, full-time score down at the home, Washi 5, Bolton 2, which that'll kind of change our questions a little bit later in the show as well, lads, that one, I think. But James, I mean, you've seen most of these sides play this season in and around these playoffs, and who do you think will be in them the final 2 spots, apart from obviously Blue Star and Benton?
I think Easington will finish 4th. As we played them away this time last Thursday night. We got a really good 1-1 draw away. They're playing first half into a gale force wind, which seems to be, I think, standard on at Easington. But we battled away, and then second half they were playing at the wind, but they had the chances to score. Really, they missed a few really good chances, and we defended really well to get a point. It was really kind of professional performance from us to try and see the game out. But I was really impressed with how Easington played, and they're well organised, really good, strong team. As Dan mentioned, they've been sniffing around the playoffs or near the top of the league, for a good few seasons now, and they've got that kind of experience and that quality. So I think they'd be there. And kind of the final playoff point, I think Horden have got a good chance of getting in there. A lot's going to depend on, there's a really big game, on Monday with Horden against Easington, local derby. That's going to that'll go a long way to kind of sorting things out and seeing who secures the playoff position. But I think Horden are going to be up there. And then you look like I mentioned Sinners, they've been on a fantastic run of form. They had that long streak and had a really good result away at Bedlington earlier the week when they won up at Craig Park when they were playing up at Morpeth. So that was a really really big result for them. But again, they've got points on the board, but they haven't got the games in hand. Again, it comes back to what we were saying before about Division 1. Is it better to have the points already in the bank or have the games in hand? And teams have got to play, as mentioned before, thick and fast these fixtures come. And like similar to Division 1, a lot of teams are going to be playing teams in and around themselves in the last few games of the season. So I think Sinners might get pipped. My heart says Yarmouth Eaglescliffe are going to go on a rampage and unbeaten run towards the end of the season. But, we've got a few really tough games coming up. We've got this Saturday, we've got Eshwin in at home. Then we've got on Bank Holiday Monday, we've got Thornaby at home. Then we'll wait Eshwin in the weekend, I think the Saturday after. So we kind of play them almost in a 2-legged league tie almost across the week. So again, 2 teams that are really, really close to us. And you think if we're going to stay in contention, we're going to need to take 6 points from the next couple of games to keep us in and around and, keep the pressure on the teams around us. But again, you see every week in the Northern in Division 2 where there's the games that you don't expect teams to take points from, and they do. Again, player availability, if people are away, work commitments, injuries, all kind of mounts up. So it's going to be really, really interesting down to the wire, really. I think, it's probably, if I'm being realistic, like the Chesley Street Town, ourselves and Eshwin, and it's probably a little bit too much for us to do. But I think, if you told us certainly if you told us Eshwin at the start of the season, you'd be in with a shout for the playoffs come the end of the season, I think everybody would stamp your hand off on that one. But you never predict really in football. Who knows what's going to happen, and it's going to be fascinating over the next 3 or 4 weeks to see how it all shakes out.
No, it's going to be a great run in. And Ismail, back there, full-time scores. Another game: Horden 3, Brandon 0, which could be the final nail in the coffin for Brandon. That one, obviously, with Washington getting the win tonight as well. But Dan, I mean, one of the teams, like you say, I fancy as well, which is Easton. I know over the last few kind of weeks when Easton's had games called off, I've been always speaking to Ollie, he'd be a great lad down at the hub, and I just think his hunger, his passion, I just think that's going to come good in the playoffs. And I think with Horden not doing as well as I think a few people expect this season, there's a lot down with Ollie leaving to go to Easton. The people said in the warm-ups, just in being around the place, his kind of energy that he passes off to the players, and kind of Horton's missing that where Easton's picking up off that because of obviously being there as manager. And I just think with him there, the hunger and the passion, I think that'll be a massive, massive bonus for Easton. But like you say, you've got the Easton and Chelsea Street, Town, Thornaby, Yarm, but it's nice to see in Esh as well. But some of them teams who you didn't really expect possibly not to be as high as they are, but like you say, Esh, I know we had Bobby on a few weeks ago on the channel. It's nice to see them, isn't it, up there?
Yeah, absolutely is. I think Esh winning, like again, like maybe what we've discussed with Penrith in Division 1, like a team that you'd maybe think would usually maybe be down there, struggling a bit in Division 2. Like I remember I was there a couple of years ago when I played against Carl City. Obviously, Carl City were going for the league at the time, obviously, and then obviously they went on that during that remarkable run where they obviously played all the games and ended up winning the league. But I think that night, Eschwinning, obviously because Eschwinning lost that game, it made them pretty liable to relegation, as is the way in Division 2. I mean, obviously not that that's does anyone any favours, given that obviously clubs, like even before one season ends, they need to sort of start like tailoring plans towards the next one. But all the same, I think I think it is a prime example of just like how quickly things can change in football for the better. And fair play to Eschwin, and I don't think they've obviously got I don't think they're one of those have got like a huge budget to play over or anything like that. I think I don't know if it is one of the lowest in the league or what, but I think fair play to them. I think obviously fair play to Yarm and FC Hartlepool as well. Obviously just come into the league just fresh faces into the league. So it's been I think it has shown that sort of throughout the course of the league there is it is. I think the next few years, especially in that league, is going to be exciting because you've got a lot of up and coming teams. You've got obviously teams still to come up from Step 7 from the Alliance, from the away side, from the North Riding. So they'll come in and make good impressions. So it's going to be for people like me that don't really have any that don't really support any Division 2 team as such. It's going to be really exciting to watch on.
No, it's been good. Like you say, seeing some different teams on the hub as well. It's been, and obviously meeting different people and different fans. It's been brilliant the last few weeks as well. And James got asked, obviously, Yarn fan and obviously first season in Division 2. Only a couple of games played in March. How have they gone? And like you say, some tough games coming up. But if you get them wins, you kind of think, right, we beat them teams, get us in them playoffs, and you never know what can happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you said it was the start of the season, we're sitting here towards the end of March with a shout of being in the playoff places. You're like, well, you're easily taking that. I think I mentioned it last time I was on the show. My priority was finishing outside the relegation zone, effectively making sure that we maintained our Division 2 status, and anything else was a bonus. And I think there was a lot more confidence, as I said before, about from the management and the committee and the players that we could do a decent job there. I say, we've got a busy March coming up, as most clubs have, as we discussed already. Esh winning twice. We've got Thornaby. We've got Washington away, Brandon home, Chesterley Street Town away. We've got Hartlepool at home for the fourth time we've tried to play that game across the season, and we'll hopefully finally the weather will permit on that one, and then we finish up with Jarrow away. So a packed April to finish things off. But I think if we can build on last Thursday's result at Easton, for me that was a really, really good. Any away point against the team that's in the top 5 or 6, it's a fantastic point. And then again, wind affected game at home last week against Chester Street United, and we won that 1-0. But 3 points, clean sheet, and then trying to kick on from there this weekend. If we can get 6 points over this weekend, that keeps us right in the mix. And then anything can happen, really. Stranger things have happened before, but going into the playoffs, I think the pressure, again, talking about pressure before, maybe the pressure's off us. Nobody's expecting us to do anything. It's kind of, it's all unexpected. It's just kind of, let's just see how we end up, see how it goes, just play and see what comes of it. I think that might benefit us. Whereas some of the other teams, maybe Eason and Harden, there's a bit more expectation on them going into the season, and it's particularly going at the end of the season. Established clubs, looking to kick on to the next level, so might be a bit more pressure on them. Who knows?
Fingers crossed for you, definitely. And Dan, you look at the teams behind that, 11th down to 20th, and I mean, any teams that you look in their positions kind of think, I thought they would have a good season. Personally, I think myself, and I look at them as Record Town, I see them play a few times last season down the hub against Cheshire Street, Sunderland West End, a good side. I thought possibly some players coming in there over the summer there would have a good season. I know Bolton, I was speaking to their manager last week, and he was expecting a little bit more from them. Any sides for you that stands out?
Yeah, I was just going to mention Record Town. Obviously, you sent me the script for this, as you always do. And I was thinking most definitely Record Town. The thing is with Record Town, they do play some good stuff, but it is only in probably two small batches really in individual games. I've seen them, I think, 3 times a season. Two of them were cup matches against Division 1 sides. Obviously, they lost them as you'd expect, but they had a really, really good start in the North Riding Cup against Borough Rangers. They took a 2-0 lead and created chances throughout the course of the game. And I thought, leaving that game, I know they got beat in the end, but I left that game thinking, you know what, maybe there is hope for them this season, and they can maybe have a slightly better second half of the season. Had a decent spell in the second half at Gisborne in the FA Vars. I saw them at home against Chester Street United, and if I'm being honest about it, I think they were massively overrun in that game. I just think Chester Street United, it's always a bit of a funny one. First half of the season, quite often it's young players obviously trying to adapt to men's football, and second half season when I have adapted to it, and it's a different kettle of fish altogether, and they play some really quality stuff. But they've really struggled this year, and I think another one that's obviously been a bit of a surprise has been Billingham Town. Obviously lost the playoff final last year. You'd think they'd look to maybe try and build on it once again. So yeah, I think obviously they're maybe the two. So maybe Bolton to some degree as well. I think they've always maybe been there or thereabouts since they've come up. But obviously this year it's maybe not really happened for them that way. So I think they're maybe the three I'd say that I was maybe expecting a little bit more of. But I think so just mentioned Chester Street United there. I think that. I think they're actually really entertaining to watch, and I like when I think of it, I actually do quite like what I do there, and giving young players the chance of playing senior football as well as obviously FA Youth Cup and things like that. So I think you're probably going to get the same thing every year from them pretty much. But I've got to say that when I have watched them, I've played some genuinely impressive stuff, and I've got to say, obviously, watched them twice this season. Neither of them were on running easy pitches either.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? Well, good evening, Ian. One for Dan, this one, I think. Massive win for Gateshead during the week. You just mentioned the Hartlepool new sponsor 7-Up. Other soft drinks are available. I think, Dan was very, very pleased that one the other night. Fantastic result for Gateshead. Like I say, a promising season, looking even better now. Definitely. I mean, some of them teams in there as well, James. I mean, you've seen them come thick and fast this season, some of them teams. And I can imagine Chester Street will get another mention, because most of the people I mentioned, even down the hub, speak to kind of say, I don't know how they're down there, the football that they play, but who's any teams that's down there that you've seen play against Yarmouth, and you kind of think, how they're down there?
Well, Chester Street, I think as you mentioned, they play some really good football. We played them twice this season, won both games 1-0. Really close games, and neither team, we were chuffed to get 6 points from them really, but they do play some decent football. I think the surprise for me, the best team that I've seen, the best performance against us this season was Newcastle Uni. Back in January, we played them away and we lost 5-1.
Yeah.
And they were absolutely sensational that day. Again, another windy day. We played, they had the wind first half, and then you think second half with the wind on our backs, we'll come back into it. But they were head and shoulders above us, better than us that day. They were fantastic. And even when we played them earlier in the season. They ended up down to 8 men, and we only sneaked a win, a couple of goals past them. And they played really well. If I'd stayed like 11 against 11, I think they would have beaten us that game. And they were like, but again, they got issues in terms of player availability and the number of games they're playing with, playing in the University League and University Cups, etc., and keeping that going. But I say they were fantastic. I think on the team as well, we mentioned Billingham Town. They're our landlords, and we've played them twice. They beat us. Beat us early in the season 1-0. We were on top most of the game. They took their chances, and we didn't score. And then we drew 1-1 with them. We drew with them February time, and that was I expected them to be higher up the league given where they were. As Dan mentioned, last season, in the playoff final, and didn't make it through. And I expect them to kind of kick on, but obviously they've had a management change, they've had players change, that kind of player churn, and as a manager leaves and brings his players with it and new players in, etc., kind of mix things up a bit. But I think the other two as well that mentions is Jarrow and Bolton, and Washington, the amount of issues they've had with pitches and postponements and things, it cannot have been easy for them. Just seem to be, it's months and weeks since a lot of them have played any home games at their actual home ground. So that's a big impact from them. And maybe if things, the weather had been better, there hadn't been as many postponements, maybe they'd been a bit higher up and taken a few more points. But it's just such a competitive league. From the bottom to the top, really. You see some of the results that come through. Chesley Street United, they had beat Terriers earlier in the season. You got Billingham Town going to Easington and winning, and it's anybody can beat anybody on the day. I mean, we'll talk about Brandon shortly, but we only beat them by the odd goal back end of February. So everybody, it's that competitive, and there's nobody really. You go into every game, and you've got to put a shift in every game to get something out of it. It's just a fantastic league, really.
Yeah, it's starting really in a way to end on relegation that we're going to be chatting about from Division 2, because I think we lose a lot of teams now and really struggle to get them back in. But you're looking at some sides. I mean, the bottom three, Sun West End, I think they look safe now with the points gap. And just put a bit of a room into bed as well. I know there was a lot of chat about in the non-league zone forum as well about RCA and Sun West End coming together at the end of the season, which is not happening. I can totally put 100% out there that both clubs will be staying the same where they are. And I know the kind of said West End, the chance to be hardly any budget there, but they'll give it the best shot. But I think it's nice to see both sides kind of going and staying their own ways rather than get together, because I think it'd be a shame to see one of those sides going. We've been going by themselves, so much history. So yeah, Sun West End is staying and RCA is staying by themselves as well. But they look safe. But look, the other two sides, and I think that obviously the two games tonight now, Washington now on 20 points and Brandon on 10 points, which is obviously a 10 difference in the points, which at this time of the season with the games that's left, I think that's kind of now almost kind of put the places where it's going to end. But Dan, rumours obviously one down again. I was going to ask who you're going for, but I think after tonight it's kind of almost nailed on now, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately it is. And I think it'll be a shame to see Brandon go. I've always held him in quite high regard as a club. I've always I always sort of found him sort of quite sociable, quite welcoming. Whenever I went, I've only been there once, but I did genuinely enjoy my trip there, and I maybe ought to get back there at some point. Obviously, just above that, you've got Washington again. As just touched upon, had a lot of issues with the pitch this season, and finding themselves back at the hub, as I think was unfortunately a pretty predictable thing to happen. So then, obviously, above that, you've got West End, who've obviously probably done enough, and it is good to see that West End are going to stay as West End, RCA are going to stay as RCA, because at the end of the day, it's you've got a lot of there is still quite a lot of history behind both clubs. RCA, I quite like RCA's ground actually. I've got to say, and I think as well, geographically as well. I know obviously they are both representing the city of Sunderland, but there's different parts of Sunderland altogether. I think the hubs in obviously in Ford, RCA is all the way over in Riot, so it's almost west to east, really, isn't it? So I think what maybe could have made more sense, I'm not sure if people in Ripe would agree with me on this, is if the two Ripe clubs had, if the two Ripe clubs had merged together, because I've always felt that Ripe was probably too small a place to realistically have two clubs, unfortunately. I think at best, like, they'd only really, the highest crowd maybe like for each one would be like 250 or something like that each season. So it's so it was a shame what happened to. All I'm saying was just a bit of a shame what happened to the Ripe CW, but as RCA kept going, and obviously does it sounds like, thankfully he'll obviously still be around this next season. I mean, granted, probably in Division 2, but I think it might make the fact that they're not merging, will probably make it a bit more interesting for like football in that area next season, because you'll have like two clubs with Sunderland in the name playing against each other, so that's obviously naturally going to grab quite a bit of attention, and could lead to like fairly respectable turnouts at both games whenever they play each other.
Oh well. And James, I mean, you look at some of those teams that we touched on a few times on the show now that's dropped out the Northern League. I mean, picking out two straight away, the likes of Wilton, who's really struggling this season, Durham City, and just some sides. And you hope, obviously, with Brandon going down now, that the same doesn't happen to them with all the history that they had. But I think they've put on this week, obviously, they've got the catalogue with kind of looking at sponsorships and kind of moving forward now as a club. But you see them dropping down. It looks a bit more positive for them, and hopefully, like you say, they can get together next season in the Wayside League if they do go down, and hopefully come back again stronger, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a good standard of football, obviously, when you that step below Northern League Division 2. I mean, I've seen a lot of North Riding Premier League games, and there's some decent, really decent football being played there, and I'm sure it's the same across the Wayside League and the Northern Alliance. And it's, it'll be tough to get. It will be tough to get back up, but I think they seem to have got their heads screwed on from what you can, certainly from what they're putting out, and in terms of publicity, etc. That kind of partnership approach. They've got Durham Sestria playing there. They're looking to establish re-establish their youth team, the women's team. They're looking to kind of again, building sustainably and other sources of income, trying to keep, to support the club. And they've had a really difficult season. There's no getting away from that. You think what happened at the start of the season when the manager and the players kind of left en masse, and then they got to the point where it was almost a case of, well, are Brandon in or out of the league over Christmas time? And we were half expecting that we weren't going to be playing them in the league. We played them in the cup and the League Cup earlier in the season, and I didn't think we were going to get the two league games in. And then I was good. I couldn't make the away game, but as I mentioned before, we won 3-2, and they give us a really good game. By all accounts, we didn't play brilliantly, but they really battled, and probably deserved a draw from that. But we managed to get a win. And they're trying to. A few of the lads who went up there, I was talking to them at the Easton game last week, and they were saying that went in after the match, and there was in the clubhouse after the match, and there was a private function on, so all the players were kind of struggling to get their food and drink after the match. But that just shows, they're trying to, people are coming through the gate, and then they're trying to use the clubhouse to, bring in, come in, and it's, that's important, in terms of if they're going to come back to get that financial security and, get some money coming through, think about the long term. It might not bounce straight back up, but the kind of longer term to certainly compete at the top end of the Wayside League, and then hopefully look for promotion again. I say I was gutted I didn't get up there, but I'll try and get one of the games the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best views ever done, isn't it, up there?
Yeah, I think if it's a clear day, you can see Durham Cathedral, can't you? So it's a pretty scenic place to go and watch football. But you touch upon teams that have obviously gone down from the Northern League and never come back. I think another good example of that's Alnwick. I don't think they've done badly as such in the Northern Alliance, but it just maybe shows you just how tough it is. Regardless of the facilities or the infrastructure of your club, just once you're down there, it is highly competitive, because you've got obviously clubs that are looking to progress up the leagues. Look at what's going on one of my local teams a minute at Grangetown, what they're doing in terms of building well, like we're not building the ground obviously, but obviously getting it up to like Northern League standards in terms of like putting lights in, putting a stand in, putting paving areas around the pitch. So obviously they're taking it pretty seriously. But then again, you get like a lot of like other clubs that have got like such high quality teams, but because they've not really got like a proper like ground as such, is essentially just like maybe a pitch with a railing around it. I think likes of obviously the Red Canoe Market, obviously they can't come up, but have got like just a team that's almost head and shoulders above the rest of their league. You look at some of the teams in the Wayside League, some of the teams in the Alliance as well. So it's such a tough like nut to crack if you do go down, and it is. I think it is always going to be tough to come up. But then again, some clubs have obviously come back. Like I remember Berkeley got relegated in 2016, I think it was, and look at them now. Where the thought of them dropping out of Northern League is like almost like totally unthinkable at this point, isn't it?
Oh, it is nice. I think the next 5 or 6 years, I can see a lot of change. Like you say, with these teams kind of putting things in place to come into Northern League. I think it's just going to get exciting. Like you say, like the next few weeks as well, which will obviously in our next show, I think we'll be exhausted by the next 3 weeks of all these games coming. I think it'll be absolutely fantastic. And the playoff start, it's just going to get better and better. But Dan and James, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your input as always.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure as always.
Excellent. And back again next week. Next week, I will looking back with Paddy Atkinson, great player from the past as well. And myself and Dan will be back next week for our episode 2 of our show as well. So really looking forward to that. But again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night as well.